days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. How's it going? See, chat is filling up, and this is going to be a fun one. We're talking all about what happened in the joint practices. So, joint practices came and went. Let everyone let me know what you guys thought about what you've heard so far, and we're going to be going through some of those things as well. So, a fun time for the 49ers, and fun time to talk 49ers football. And yeah, what's up, Josh? How's it going? Josh is in the house. David's in the house as well. And here you go right away. We've got some of the injury concerns, and Josh says, you think Bell? I'm going Jameson. And he's talking about return because the 49ers came out today and said there were some injuries and that Kyle Shanahan was going to be kind of going over what those injuries were, and Ray-Ray McCloud was the big one. Ray-Ray McCloud injured his right wrist. I believe it was right wrist. It could have been the left. Out at practice on Tuesday, he was going up for a pass deep that Sam Darnold threw, and he injured his wrist. So it's going to require surgery, and that surgery is going to keep him out 6 to 8 weeks. Likelihood is probably 8 weeks, which means the 49ers are not only going to have a roster position open at wide receiver, but also for a returner as well. And so Josh is saying, hey, you think it's going to be Ronnie Bell, or do you think it's going to be Deshaun Jameson? I think it's really interesting conversation because it could be either one of them, actually. And I think the 49ers would love, to get, a veteran wide receiver, but they may not have that option now. And I think this is going to be one of the most interesting conversations, that happens from these guys because, when it comes to the wide receiver position, the 49ers have a plethora of players that can produce for this football team. And I think that when it comes to Ray-Ray McCloud, he was a lock. And now the 49ers have some decisions to make at a few different spots because when it comes down to it, the 49ers are going to have to figure out how to manage the roster. They're going to have to go ahead and release someone probably and bring somebody back after moving Ray-Ray McCloud to the IR. So the way it works, and what's up, Michael? How's it going? The way it works is Ray-Ray McCloud, because he wasn't injured before the season, he's going to have to be on the 49ers active 53-man roster as of August 29th when they make their final cuts. That will put him on the week 1 roster. And then once that happens, then the 49ers can go and they can put him on the IR, creating a roster spot, and then go find a wide receiver that they could bring in. Now, they could go to some of their veteran wide receivers, Willie Snead, who is also a returner, who's been playing pretty well, Mike Conley, another guy that they could go and reach out to and get him as well, potentially get him to go along with it as well. You go ahead and you release them, then you bring them back the next day. Maybe you kick them an extra, $75,000, $100,000, whatever on their contract, and then you bring them back and they become your 5th or 6th wide receiver and handle the recovery. So Conley makes a lot of sense. Snead makes a lot of sense. And what's up, Lou? How's it going? Hope you're having a good one. BV50 in the house as well. So Ray-Ray McCloud has been the overall conversation coming out so far. And, of course, that happened at practice. But the 49ers weren't done there, unfortunately, but suffered a few other injuries as well. George Kittle is dealing with an adductor, the same sort of injury that Elijah Mitchell was dealing with. Kyle Shanahan said that adductor injury was going to keep Elijah Mitchell out a week, and he had similar thoughts about George Kittle. They were looking at that potentially being a week as well. Dre Greenlaw had a hamstring, and this happened during practices today, the joint practice against the Raiders. So Dre Greenlaw dealing with a hamstring. It seems to be on the mild side, so I'm cautiously optimistic about Greenlaw coming back. And really all it comes down to is him being back before the regular season. So the 49ers have plenty of time, a little over a month before they need to place the Pittsburgh Steelers on September 10th. So Greenlaw will be eased back in. That'll give opportunities to other players on the team to go out and make an impact, whether that is, guys like Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles or Curtis Robinson. There's going to be opportunities for the young guys as well. McCrary Ball, Jalen Graham, D. Winters, all of them are going to have opportunities now to potentially get in there and make some plays. So I think that it's really a possibility for it. And Josh says right here, does Greenlaw injury mean more reps for rookie Winters? I think it does. And I think there's more reps for McCrary Ball as well. That's the one thing about Marcelino McCrary Ball is he's pretty much been able to play all three of the 49ers linebacker positions. And I think that that's one thing that is going to be important if you're going to make this roster is versatility. And I think the Niners feel pretty comfortable with their starting unit. Of course, the other linebackers are still going to be able to go out there and build and get after these guys. But I think they want that versatility, especially at the end of the linebacker room, because you're going to have a ton of players that are potentially going to get waived or released. We know that 3 linebackers for sure won't make it. It could be as many as 4, with the 49ers having to decide if they want to keep 5 linebackers or 6. I'm leaning towards they're probably going to keep 6 just because of the talent at the linebacker position. You don't want to just give it away for free. Could the 49ers turn around and trade a player away? Yes, they could, but we'll see what that market looks like. The 49ers do have GMs around the league that are excited about 49ers linebackers, and there's been so many good GMs that have left the 49ers front office and went out that potentially they could come back and want one of these other guys, especially with all the reports coming out of Tennessee that the Titans are crazy happy with what's going on with Azeez Al-Shire. So I think that's something that definitely is going to be the right way. And Josh has so many good linebackers. That's going to be rough. Yeah, it's going to be rough. The cuts are not going to be fun for any linebackers at all. And BV50 comes with a good question here. Are you confident with the other defensive end position? I think the concern now with Drake Jackson being hurt is about the depth. So I do believe the 49ers feel pretty good about their defensive end position overall, but I'm sure this is going to give them some concern because they don't really have a guy now that for sure can be a part of that, that second unit that they feel has first level capabilities. So where they have Nick Bosa and Drake Jackson, let's say Clelin Ferrell is on the second team, they feel like Clelin Ferrell is a good enough to be a starter in this league kind of guy. Well, now if you lose Drake, you kind of lose one of those guys. So yeah, Clelin Ferrell would start next opposite of Nick Bosa. I think he would do a good job. His hand technique's been good. He's been getting after the quarterback. He sets the edge pretty good against the run. I definitely think he's been more explosive playing for Chris Kasarik than he was playing in Las Vegas. A lot of that scheme, a lot of that is the way that they go about handling their business in San Francisco. But I think it's something that we're still going to see from this team. But they've got Austin Bryant, they've got Taco Charlton, and Alex Barrett's been playing pretty well. So I would say I'm still confident, and a lot of the reason I'm still confident is because of Coach Chris Kasarik. So does Clelin Ferrell's success say more about him or about the struggles of the O-line? It's pretty simple. It says a lot about Clelin Ferrell. Clelin Ferrell's looked good in several situations, and really, I mean, he's even had good reps against a guy like Trent Williams in practice. And if you're having good, successful reps against Trent Williams, you can have good, successful reps against anyone in this league. So I'm not real concerned about, Clelin Ferrell. To me, he's been as advertised, even more so than what we were expecting. I've always kind of liked this technique when I saw him coming from Vegas. I went back and watched a lot of his film, and I was excited about, what he could provide the 49ers on the defensive line. So I haven't had as many worries about that at all. Lou says, who's out there as far as for the edge, free agent edge? There's still guys out there like Jadeveon Clowney is still available. Some of the bigger name guys went. Houston went this week. Yannick Ngakoue went this week. But there's still some guys that are available that the 49ers could reach out to if they needed to. I think they've been more willing to go more under the radar picks, and guy like Taco Charlton with a first round talent, but maybe hasn't reached his expectations. I think the 49ers are more willing to go with guys like that. And David Marazzo is understanding what's going on here. He says, curious to see how Austin Bryant looks. Austin Bryant has been fun watching him. He looks like a power forward. He's big, he's strong, fast, and he's been explosive since he's been back. So Bryant had another pretty good joint practice today. All I've heard is good reports about what Austin Bryant did out there on the football field. So I think defensive end is going to be highlighted because of Drake Jackson injury. I don't expect it to hang on for Drake for very long, and he'll come back. Luckily, it's not as important right now, even though he's one of those players that I think the 49ers want to get as many reps as he could possibly get. They need him to get a lot of reps because in the grand scheme of things, you need Drake Jackson capable and playing the best that he could possibly play as soon as you kick the tires and get going. So I think that right now the 49ers are probably not too worried, but as we get closer to the season, if they're still dealing with injuries, it's something they're going to have to work on. That's for sure. And I think, that's the concern is these injuries are going to kind of build up a little bit. It's normal. I think the one thing to remember is besides Ray and McCloud, most of these are soft tissue injuries and nothing that, you can really do about them. The 49ers have done a pretty good job of monitoring the way that they go about practice. Coming off these off days, they've been going with a easy day, then they've been ramping it up for a very high day, and then they've been going medium and then back to that break. So this model has worked for the 49ers, but we're seeing kind of the dog days of training camp catching up to some of these players, and it's just the way it goes sometimes. And so I think that, that's one thing that the 49ers got to continue to monitor is the health of their players. And the whole goal is by September 10th to be as healthy as you could possibly be. So that's a big possibility. And Josh says, any reports on how our O-line did Ant? Yes, there is some reports on it. In fact, I was scouring looking for offensive line content because let's be honest, if it's not about guys like quarterbacks, it's probably hard to find, and quarterbacks are always over. And thanks so much to Jay Ellie for being a member for 22 months and using his membership abilities to say, slap that like button, crew. Congrats on the new partnership. Thank you so much, Jay Ellie. So yeah, for those of you who don't know what Jay Ellie's talking about, over the last couple weeks, I have joined Believe. They are now doing have my podcast on Believe Network, and they distribute it to all of the audio platforms. And then now with PSF, Pro Sports Fan app, we're going to be doing live streams of the game, so you guys can hop on there and hear commentary, and it will be announced soon, but I'll go ahead and spill it right now. Mark Adams from 49ers Camelot will be joining me for shows on the app and during the live stream, so you guys will catch both of us on that. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to all that. But let's get back to the offensive line. Like Josh said, I really want to make sure that we kind of break into it and talk, about what's going on in offensive line land, because I think it does get missed so much. But here's the report, and this is coming from Jack Hammer. So thank you so much, Jack Hammer, for doing the work on getting some offensive line breakdowns. It says Colt McKivitz and Spencer Burford both were doing very well and winning in their one-on-one reps, and they did good in the two-on-two duo reps where they were working on picking up stunts. So that's good news. That means you're seeing that chemistry of those two guys working together and then being able to handle the duo reps, which I love, because that's when you got to learn to pass guys off. That's when you got to work together to be able to double team and push up. There's lots of things you can do in those. To me, those are fantastic reps. And it was a lot of the same for Trent Williams and Aaron Banks. And Trent Williams won his reps against Max Crosby, while Banks, according to Jack Hammer, looked immovable. So I've seen pretty much consistently throughout training camp that those guys have looked pretty good overall in camp. I thought Jake Brendel looked really good, and now we're getting reports that they held up. I do know Max Crosby, from other reports that I've read, did get after Colton McKivitz a couple times, but I think that's to be expected, right? When you're out there and you're in these practices, sometimes you're going to win, sometimes you're going to lose, but I think it's good news because I think the offensive line is farther along than it was last year. I think with Colton McKivitz, he's playing at a pretty high level, but everybody else has improved on last year, minus Trent. I don't know if he can get better than he was last year, but if anyone can, it's him. But Banks, Brendel, and Burford have all continued the upward trend. You could tell they feel confident. They understand where they're supposed to be. There's less thinking. And so I think this 49ers offensive line is definitely primed to have a really good season. So I'm excited. I'm excited about it. And Josh says going against Max is awesome for McKivitz. Yeah, and that's one of the things that they're missing without having Nick Bosa in camp. If Bosa was in camp, then Colton McKivitz would be getting that work against him, and that could be hugely pivotal. But the good news is he does get to go against Max Crosby, and he's going to get to go against other guys as we get through the preseason, because I think Colton McKivitz is going to get some snaps at some point. It's just not, not probably as many as you would expect now that he's a starter. So I don't think he really needs those reps. I think that Colton McKivitz is going to be comfortable and confident, but it is nice for these joint practices to happen because it gives guys extra work, and that's what we want to see. And I think one thing to remember with joint practices, because I am going to go through some of the quarterback conversation because people definitely want to talk about it, is one thing to remember when you're going into these training camp joint practices is, yes, even though you're playing another team, you're still just running plays. So it's a lot like your 11-on-11s at practice. You're not really game planning. So you're not looking at the Raiders per se and saying, hey, I've broke down their personnel. I've broke down what they do as scheme, and these types of plays and these design plays are going to attack their weaknesses. You're going out there, you're running your bread and butter. You're running the plays that work for you against a cover 2 or a cover 3 or quarters. And you're going out there and running those plays and hoping they're going to be successful. So success during joint practices needs to be less measured on results of a play and more on individual battles between the players on the field. So if you're in an 11-on-11 play and Max Crosby beats Colton McKivitz, that's a win. That's something to monitor, how those guys battle each other throughout practice. But less results like touchdowns and things like that, moving the football, not huge to me. So I think that that's something to still monitor and watch, but it's when it comes to these joint practices, think less results and more individual results and just how execution happens. You're more wanting these guys to make sure they're executing their jobs, and I think that's the most important thing overall. So Portola says, is that minicamp tryout sensation player wide receiver Ja'Cory Pearson still available? I believe he is. I don't think anyone signed Ja'Cory Pearson. So, yeah, he's still available. I think the 49ers overall, though, Portola are very excited with their wide receiver room. Ronnie Bell, Conley, Willie Snead, Tay Martin. They've got a lot of capable people to be wide receiver 5 and wide receiver 6 while Ray-Ray McCloud is out. But Ja'Cory Pearson's definitely someone exciting. He's got a lot of speed. I think the big concern with him is going to be the fact that he's 5'7". And I think if he was taller, he'd probably be in the NFL right now. But size and weight, I think, are a concern for a lot of the NFL teams, even though we've seen it go where these smaller players have definitely made an impact before. So we'll see. We'll see. Lou says, are we going to see Zakelj enough in the preseason? I'd like to know if he's the real thing or not. Yeah, we're going to see him. So Nick Zakelj had some snaps again in practice today. So Zakelj has been playing left guard primarily, and then he's been getting some snaps at center. And I think that Nick Zakelj is going to play a lot during the preseason. You're going to see a lot of him because he's in a battle right now to make this roster. The 49ers are trying to figure out if they're going to keep 8 or 9 offensive linemen. And Zakelj, the only way he's going to make it is he has to prove he's consistently getting better and better for them to be willing to keep 2 interior offensive linemen like him and John Feliciano. And the whole time he's got to beat out Poe because Poe has been looking better, looking more confident and comfortable. So I think that right now Zakel's going to get a lot of playing time. I think we're going to see a lot of Jason Poe. We're going to see a lot of the backup guys, and it's going to be fun to watch. So I think right now training camp is, going the way it is, and preseason is where the excitement's going to be because we're going to really get to see this depth and how this 49ers team ends up rounding out. So to me, that's the way that I love training, or I love preseason, is watching all those big time, games, or it was big time, the big time games between the second and third strings. That's when I get really excited about preseason. I know preseason is less about the starters and more about everyone else. So yeah, I get excited about it for sure. And then what's up? How's it going, Paul? Welcome to the show. I'm glad you were able to get over here and stop by. So we talked 49ers offensive line, and I got to mention the quarterbacks because I just want to kind of go over what they were doing. I'm like I said, I'm less concerned about the overall, final what they did as far as stats, but I want to go through reps. So Brock Purdy got 27 reps. I think that's good. Trey Lance got 19. Sam Darnold got 9. So I wonder if the expectation is that tomorrow in day 2 that Sam Darnold will get more reps and maybe Trey Lance's reps will taper down. So I'm curious about how the reps are going to be distributed between those 3 guys. Brandon Allen got no reps. I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't continue as well with him getting no reps because he's going to play in the preseason game for sure on Sunday. Brandon Allen will, and I think Trey and Darnold will as well. So I think those guys, the reps will end up balancing out. But right now, Trey Lance was the big victor as far as quarterback 2 versus quarterback 3, getting 10 extra reps compared to Sam Darnold. And with that, let's just go over the numbers real quick. Passing, Brock Purdy 11 of 16, Trey Lance 6 of 12, Sam Darnold 1 of 3. Not really worried about it, but I think this is just kind of what you expect from these joint practices. Like I said, less about results, more about making sure you're executing, going through your reads, trying to find the right guys. I think that's what they're working on right now, and it's a good thing. It's really good. And Josh says, any news on Bill? Did he dress? So no, he did not dress, but there is news on him. He is dealing with a hamstring. So that is why Robert Beal hasn't been practicing. For everyone that's been wondering, yesterday I broke it down that, that's what happened to Kalia Davis. So I've been just trying to find out what's going on with these players that aren't suiting up. And that's what the news was. I found out about Robert Beal. He's been dealing with a hamstring. So the hamstring bug kind of caught up to Austin Bryant, Robert Beal, now Drake Greenlaw, Drake Jackson. This is common when you're guys who, especially that are used to building off explosion. You're coming up there and you're playing defensive line. You got to explode off. You can have hamstring things. For the most part, everything that I've understood about these injuries is that they're all minor and they're not, severe hamstring pulls. Because if they were, you're talking, 6 to 8 weeks potentially for an injury, but not in this case. I think the 49ers are okay with Beal. With Robert Beal, there's no incentive for them to keep him out. With other players, a guy like Darrell Luter Jr., there's an incentive now for the 49ers to not bring him back because he wouldn't count against the roster and he could just stay on PUP all the way into the regular season. They can still bring him back, but because he started training camp on PUP, he can stay on PUP into the regular season. Everybody else, Kalia Davis, Robert Beal, everyone else that's been injured, they have to be on the active 53-man roster or they have to be waived. So the 49ers are going to have some decisions right there for sure. So I think it's something that the 49ers are still working on, but I would expect Beal to come back at some point, or the 49ers are going to have to make a decision like they did with Curtis Robinson last year. Can they talk to a Kerry Hyder? Can they talk to a Taco Charlton and say, hey, we're going to go ahead and release you. And then, tomorrow when we put Robert Beal on the IR, we'll sign you to a new contract. I think that's something that the 49ers do. It's definitely a smart way to get the guys that you need to get onto your roster and not worry about losing them. But right now, the 49ers I'm sure would love to see what Robert Beal can do. There's no real incentive, unless it's just, hey, since he's been hurt, let's keep him out and let's put him on IR and show that he's not healthy. That I don't know. But We'll see. BV50 says, Ant, does a guard that plays both sides have value, or is it par for the course? So the way Chris Foerster goes about building his offensive line is he actually makes his guards, interior offensive linemen, be able to play not just both guard spots, but center as well. There's so many limitations on how many offensive linemen you can keep because you need a talented roster everywhere else, that you got to make sure that your offensive linemen are capable of playing multiple positions. So with your tackles, it's swing tackle, right? Playing both sides. And with your guards now, it's not just playing left and right guard, but playing center. Center is the big adjustment because you got to get used to having your hand between your legs as you're snapping. You got to get used to making the line calls, adjusting for protections. There's a lot that goes to it and with it. But I think that right now, that's just how Chris Foerster attacks it. So they play left and right guard, and they play center. And so far, we've seen several guys be able to do that. John Feliciano, Nick Zakel, Keith Ishmael, and now also Jason Poe. All are being capable of doing that. So the 49ers have 4 options to choose from. I think Zakel and Feliciano are on the top of that list. That's for sure. So Josh says, Cameron Latu still struggling to catch the ball. Yeah, that's true. And I think what it is right now, it's a lack of focus. He's got so much he's thinking about and processing about this offense that he just hasn't been able to secure these catches. When I watched him at training camp, I noticed he was taking his eye off the ball at times, trying to turn up the field. So what he's got to do is slow down. Like, all right, kid, it's not time to make a big time play. It's time to make sure you secure the catch first and then become a ball carrier. So he's got to adjust to some of that right now. And he's going to have to adjust quick because, you know, this league waits for no one. But I do think Cameron Latu will figure it out. I'm hoping he's going to figure it out during the preseason because that would be really good news for the 49ers. So when it comes to the quarterbacks, no real concern about what they were doing. There were moments where all 3 quarterbacks looked really good. Brock Purdy was able to, distribute the football to his playmakers, convert on some third downs, got a touchdown in the red zone, but he also threw one on the sideline to Christian McCaffrey that would have resulted in a touchdown. And then Trey Lance made some really nice throws too. So I think for their first action against another team in practice, I thought they held up really well, and that is good news overall for the 49ers because this quarterback room has been the most talked about room around, but it's going to be just fine. I'm telling you, it's going to be just fine. And then when you're talking about the guys that are now kind of being thrusted into action, and we're probably going to see more of in training camp, guys we talked about earlier, like Taco Charlton, Austin Bryant, this is opportunities for those guys to get in there and make some plays. And earlier I did see a comment, where someone had asked about maybe, a thinned out Kinlaw potentially coming in and playing. I think it was, here it was. BV50 said, do you try Kinlaw DN? I hear he's lighter and quicker this year. It wouldn't be Kinlaw for the mere fact that it would probably be Eric Armstead. Armstead, of course, is the most likely to move out if he had to. He's a base 4-3 guy. So I don't think that's the case right now. And the 49ers still have some very talented defensive ends, even though they have Drake Jackson and Nick Bosa out, who were projected starters coming into training camp. You still got Cleveland Farrell. You got Kerry Hyder, who started a lot of games in this league. Austin Bryant, Taco Charlton, both of them are capable edge rushers. And so you've got a plethora of guys that are available. And I think at some point, if they think that these injuries are going to linger, then they'll have to make other moves. But right now, I don't think that's a big concern for the 49ers going into day 2 of joint practices tomorrow. And I think day 2 will probably have a few changes. Both teams will adjust a little bit to what the other was doing. It was very clear. Jimmy Garoppolo said that the Raiders' offense is different under McDaniels than it was when he was in New England. So there's, I'm sure, a little bit of adjusting. So, right now, I think it's something that the 49ers are going to adjust to. I'm curious to see what the reps look like. And also something to pay attention to for day 2 is who slides in for Dre Greenlaw at will linebacker. Is it going to be Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles or, who's it going to be? I think that's going to be something to watch and how those reps are garnered because then we're going to get a really good idea of who's playing where. So Josh says, are you live streaming the preseason game? I won't be live streaming this first preseason game. So the app is rolling out on the 14th. Basically the one for Android is coming on the 14th. So I will see. There might be a time where I do a preseason game, one of the 2 preseason games that are remaining. But as of right now, I have no plans to stream this one. I do have a plan to stream after, so you can come check out the reaction show. I know everyone does one, but it's always a lot of fun to do those reaction shows for sure. Paul says, I'm going to try it again, Ant. 5.5 sacks for Kinlaw. I love it. You got to be optimistic about, the fact that Kinlaw is going to have a pretty good year. And to be honest, Paul, the way he's looked through in training camp and the way that he's been able to stay healthy with no days off, no maintenance days, you got to feel really optimistic about what he can do for this 49ers team this year. So what do we expect from day 2 of 49ers joint practice? Well, I think you're going to expect a lot of the same. They're going to go out there, strategic practices today with the offensive line, for instance, one-on-ones and duos. That's great work. They'll continue that. And they do a lot of drills working together just to get, different looks from different types of players. It's not all about the 11-on-11 work that's going on, but I'm always excited about the 11-on-11 work. And I think it's all about just getting in a rhythm. For quarterbacks and stuff, it's about getting in and out of the huddle. It's about moving the ball, taking advantage of situations, getting to 3rd and short. And one thing that wasn't talked about enough was the 49ers run game was explosive today. So I know all the attention goes, to the quarterbacks, but the run game for the 49ers was real explosive. Christian McCaffrey was, exploding and creating a big run game opportunities. So that would also play into how you do a game plan. I think if the 49ers had a game plan set and then they were, struggling at times with the Raiders, I would have more worries for sure. And then we got, I love this from Josh. Hopefully tomorrow somebody gets a pick off from Jimmy. I know Fred Warner wants it so bad. And then you had the comments from Charvarius Ward where he's talking about how much he likes Jimmy Garoppolo. He says, but I'm still gonna pick him off. I just love that commentary. And BB50 says, and I saw a snapshot of Jimmy G and Brock chatting together. Were they close as teammates? My understanding of them together is that Jimmy G really did show Brock Purdy the ropes and that Brock looked up to him. And he really learned how to be a professional from watching the way Jimmy Garoppolo handled everything, from the way he approached meeting rooms to how he approached going and practicing or dealing with teammates. Brock Purdy looked up to Jimmy Garoppolo and how he did things. So I think that's, really good news for the 49ers about, how Brock is going to carry himself as a teammate and as a professional, because when it comes down to it, Jimmy Garoppolo, there's lots of things people cannot like him about, but the way he handles himself as a professional to his peers, to the media members, I think has never been a problem. And so Brock learning that, I think, is good news. And I do like that they went to each other and kind of, talked and shook hands and stuff. And that's always good. And that's really what you're looking for, from teammates who move on. And there's no bad blood. They know this is a business and this is how it goes. And now it's Brock Purdy's time to shine. It's his time to make an impact, and Jimmy Garoppolo's going his own way and doing his own thing. But that's kind of how it goes sometimes. But thanks everyone for joining me for this episode about day 1 of joint practice. Looking forward to talking about day 2 tomorrow. I hope you guys will all come through and join in as well. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Until then, stay safe and remember the right way is always the 49ers way.